so I guess I didn't carry the facts there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, couldn't keep a lid on it forever. You of all people know that.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Yep.
John, you need water?
No.
We have everybody. I'm peachy. So, John, let's do a moment of silence first before we do the pledge. Uh-huh. Okay. So don't call the canine naming. So they're not here today. Okay. Okay. What's that?
Some of the kids couldn't make it. So
Only one kid's supposed to come.
Or the kid name. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Got everybody? She was here. Somebody lose that. Did somebody lose them? Who? I don't know.
Start calling you Chuck.
Hey, Jim, are they besties now?
They're eating.
Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dadge?
Here.
Trustee Guerra?
Here.
Trustee Ruzick?
Here.
Trustee Calandrello?
Here.
Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Pico?
Here. And please stand and observe a moment of silence for both the shootings yesterday in Texas, including all the young children that were killed, but also in New York the week before with the attack with the vehicle. Can we please have the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
approval of October 10, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Are there any changes to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton?
move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees special meeting of October 10th, 2017. Second.
I do have a change on page 4, paragraph 4. It should say owned building. Just a simple typo. Any other changes to the minutes?
Building instead of builds.
Yep. Any other changes? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Abstain. I wasn't present. Had to work.
Trustee Carroll.
Abstain, same reason.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Approval of October 16, 2017 regular meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Are there any changes to the minutes? I have one change on page 2 after the quote. It also indicate that I did not say that, so it wasn't just that I want it removed from the minutes, but it wasn't said. Call the roll.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Abstain.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Approval of October 21st, 2017 special meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve the minutes of the Board of Trustees special meeting workshop of October 21st, 2017.
Second.
Are there any changes to the minutes? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Abstain.
Trustee Guerra.
Abstain.
Trustee Ruzick.
Abstain.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
St. Michael's School raffle license.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to approve issuing a raffle license to St. Michael's School to sell raffle tickets during their kickoff classic fundraiser event on Saturday, December 2nd, 2017.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Orland Park A's Fast Pitch Organization raffle license.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Guerra.
I move to approve issuing a raffle license to the Orland Park A's Fast Pitch Organization to sell raffle tickets during their Trivia Night fundraising event scheduled for Friday, November 10th, 2017. Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Prohibit video gaming within the corporate limits of the Village of Orland Park.
I will entertain a motion. And no motion is forth. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I do seek to move this ordinance this time. I like it to be a debatable motion, but at this time, I'd like to move to table this referendum.
In order to table a motion, we have to make a motion first.
Sure, then I'll do that. Ordinance number, please.
5232.
I move to pass ordinance 5232 entitled an ordinance providing for the submission to the electorate of the Village of Orland Park the question of whether the village should prohibit video gaming within the corporate limits of the village.
Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick?
I would like to make a motion to table this
It has to be seconded first before we can table anything.
Is that correct?
No,
You can't table a motion that hasn't been made.
it just has to be a matter before the board. If it's before the board, in my opinion, it can be tabled.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Dodge?
I wouldn't mind if we had some discussion on this tonight.
Well, tabled motion we can discuss before voting. So
I'll
Tr-
second
Trustee
the
Dodge.
motion to table, but I'd like to have it.
You
let's get
second the
some-
main motion, okay?
Yeah, I'd like to have,
And then
let's
is there
get
a
some
motion?
discussion
And then
going.
does somebody have a motion to table?
I thought I had a motion to table.
Yeah, I'll second the motion to table,
Okay.
but I'd like to discuss it.
The motion's been seconded, and any comments or questions? Trustee Dutch.
Just, broadly, I think we've been looking at this issue for a while. I think there's a lot of people here who are interested in what the board is thinking about. And I think that we've got a number of different perspectives on how to do this. But, I, for one, have been approached by a number of the restaurant and bar owners, for lack of a better term, in Orland, pointing out that they are at a competitive disadvantage to all the towns that we've completely surrounded by video gaming. So we're certainly not going to be the first in Illinois to do something like this, and I think it's a legitimate argument from our restaurants that they're losing customers, and then, of course, the entire town, all of the taxing bodies included, are losing revenue. So that kind of opened up the topic of discussion. As I've gotten more informed, educated, if you will, about the realities of what video gaming is and isn't, started to say, okay, there might be a reasonable way to do this in Orland. And one of the things that I want to say, without, I think, being too tongue-in-cheek, is the last thing I would support would be an ordinance where you're going to get something like George Bailey running down the center of the street in Pottersville. We're not doing flashy signs. We're not doing a lot of loud, obnoxious things. We're going to make this highly, highly restricted to a very small number of businesses under a pretty tight set of circumstances. Because I think the last thing I, for one, want as a citizen and as a trustee is pop-up gaming parlors, everybody having machines everywhere. No, not interested in that. Not interested in seeing it in gas stations, not interested in seeing it in convenience stores. You're probably not going to get any of the chains to do it. And one of my pet issues has always been there's people of good intent and good conscience on both sides of this. There are some that have approached us. We've had some chats with the clergy where they are opposed, call it theological, spiritual, moral reasons, and there's other folks that just don't like the idea. I get that. And as we've talked about it, one of the ideas that I've had is something really pretty simple, which is every business that has this is going to have to put something like this on the front door. So if you hate video gaming, under very limited circumstances, don't cross the threshold. Don't do business with that business if you so detest the idea, but why should we unduly penalize Orland Park businesses? And so, in my mind, if somebody puts in gaming and you hate the idea, don't patronize them. If their customers love the idea, they're going to keep coming back and pull some of that business back to Orland. So that's kind of how I've been approaching it, and quite frankly, layering in a hell of a lot of restrictions. So that's just a broad set of thoughts, and I think we're in the early stages of trying to figure this out so we do it in an Orland way, because you don't have to go very far to see towns around us that have way too much gaming in way too many places with what looks to be not a whole hell of a lot of control. I'm not interested in that either, so I don't know if anybody else wants
Any
to
other
comment.
comments?
So I just had a couple of comments. As I look at the board, there's 8 of us up here, and when the board first considered this issue, in 2009, 5 of us weren't up here. So my opinion is that it is appropriate, just like we did with our sign ordinance and considered electronic signs, that we revisited this issue because we have had more requests, just like we had requests from businesses back then. And given that we have new board members who were not on there years ago, it made sense to me to revisit this issue. I, for one, have not made up my mind. I feel like there's a lot of information that we still need to get. We're in the process of getting that. I think there's many of us who'd like to see a town hall. And so I think for that reason, I felt that motion tonight was premature.
Any other comments? Trustee Guerra.
Yeah, I would agree with Trustee Rizek. There's so many things to consider here. You look at the state board gaming site, and it shows the revenue, the way it's divided up, and which community gets how much and how many machines, and the different fees involved for the machines. There's a lot of information out there, information I don't know that I had in 2009. That said,
I don't know what I think either. I know my neighborhood had a homeowners association meeting last week, and I did poll the residents there. I said, what do you think? Because the best thing we can hear, I believe, as Trustee Ruzick said, have a town hall meeting. Let's hear what the residents think, because this is our town. And those businesses that want it, I understand it's extra revenue, but they also sought to locate here because of what Orland Park is. So that doesn't mean we have to change to be like every place else. We have to reflect what the residents in the community want to see.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Carroll.
Approximately 2.5 years ago when I was running for office, or actually a little bit longer ago than that, 2.5 years ago when I was sworn into office, I made a promise that I would look at this issue again. As Trustee Ruzick said, it had last been visited by the board 8 years ago, when the majority of the board no longer is in existence. There was a big change. And like Trustee Dodge said, one of the things when I've been polling individual board members over that 2.5 years, the consistency I see across the 7 of us is that nobody wants this to be downtown Vegas. There's not a single board member sitting up here that wants bright flashing neon signs, that wants unlimited access to these machines. At its best, if this were to happen, I think the board is looking at those small businesses, like Trustee Dodge mentioned, that are at that competitive disadvantage. And I was talking to a reporter from the Tribune last week, and I mentioned this point, which a lot of people have been escaped by, that weren't aware of this. It's not just the revenue for the video gaming that affects our bars and restaurants. It's the fact that in the municipalities around us, those that do have video gaming, those restaurant and bar owners can use that revenue from gaming to discount their food and beverage prices. So not only are these bar owners and restaurant owners losing the customers that drive to Homer Glen, or to Orland Hills, or to Tinley Park, or to Palos Hills, or to Mokina, or to New Lenox, they also are losing those customers that want to have a $1 bottle of beer or a $2 hamburger, because the Orland Park bar and restaurant owners can't afford to sell their merchandise at that cost point because of the lack of revenue from video gaming. As a licensed attorney, I've talked to commercial lenders that say, I can't finance a restaurant to come into your town because you don't allow gaming and all the municipalities around you do. They can't get the same commercial lending rates because of the decisions this board made 8 years ago. So I don't think there's anybody up here that, if we were to allow that to happen, are going to let it go willy-nilly, have it be the wild, wild west. I think everybody up here with whom I've spoken talks about significant restrictions on the ability to have that license. So if we were to do it, I am confident that we would do it in such a manner that it was as restrictive as any other municipality around. And there are municipalities like Tinley Park, like Niles, that didn't allow it for years and years. They revisited it like we're doing now, and they made the decision, the business and political decision, that it was time to change their policy because they weren't being fair to their bars and restaurants. And in those municipalities that recently added it, Tinley, I think 2 years ago, Niles last year, we've been talking to them. We've had our chief of police, Tim McCarthy, talk to the chiefs of police of area municipalities to see if there are any minefields, any booby traps if this is done. And so far, we've found none. So like Trustee Guerra said, like Trustee Ruzick said, there's a little bit more information for us to amass before we can make an informed decision. We anticipate there being more public discussion about it, but I also feel that tonight's motion was premature because we hadn't gotten through that process yet.
Trustee Fenton.
I just want to, for the record, reiterate what Trustee Ruzick said. This is an issue that I was on the board in 2009 when we considered it. We didn't have the competition for our, as I call them, mom and pop restaurants in town who are suffering. And so I agree with this needs to be revisited, but there would be no way in God's green earth that I would vote for anything that didn't have the utmost restrictions in it. And I've spoken to the mom and pops and told them that, this isn't going to be a willy-nilly thing. This would have a lot of restrictions when and if we even decide to do that. But I also wouldn't even consider anything unless we've had at least 1 or 2 town hall meetings where the residents and the business owners would be able to come and voice their opinion. So I've always been an advocate for no signage outside for even some of our businesses, so there's no way that's going to happen other than this little sign Trustee Dodge is recommending in the door. So it's a decision that hasn't been made. It's just in the discussion period and research period. So I do agree that I think this motion tonight was a little bit premature, and with the hopes that everybody understands that everybody up here is doing research on this. This isn't just something that we're going to come one night and try to sneak through. That's not going to happen with this. This is a major issue for this community, and we do value the opinions of not only our businesses, but our residents.
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Calandrello.
Just very brief, instead of repeating what everyone said, I just look forward to the open public discussion about this in a transparent process. But since Clerk Mahalik, it was on his agenda, I think it's only appropriate that he's allowed to speak today on this issue.
So first off, the clerk will not be allowed to speak because he doesn't have standing to speak here, but also there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is he's not offered the same broad legislative immunity from libel and from slander that we all are afforded. The clerk does not have that same protection that the trustees have and that the mayor has. So it's for his own protection that he's not speaking. So everyone else has spoken. I think there's two issues here. The first is the process. It's unfortunate for the citizens that the clerk decided to put this on the agenda. He organized a protest, realized that there wasn't anything on the agenda, then decided at the last minute to put something on the agenda. And to my knowledge, at least 5 of the board members were not contacted or told. That is not the way that we conduct business. For all the disagreements we may have had over the last 4 or 5 months, the stuff that goes on the agenda, we are all aware of. We do have conversations about it. So additionally, if you look at what was put on the agenda, it was a referendum to pass an ordinance that the board already passed in 2009. So why would you put a referendum on the ballot that already exists? It doesn't make any sense. So that process was unfortunate. Regarding gaming, one of the things that it's our job to do before moving forward with something like this is to develop a fact base, not only for ourselves, but for the public. And that's exactly what we've been doing. The trustees and I have all been working very hard together to build a fact base. I know you think that everything is disagreement, but we've been working really hard together to get a fact base. So we've conducted an impact study. So what's the financial impact study? We've been reviewing other ordinances throughout the state of Illinois to see what restrictions people have placed on this and how far we can push those restrictions legally. What's been tested in court, what hasn't been tested in court. Trustee Dodge and I met with the clergy to get their input. Then we had about a 2.5, 3-hour meeting with them. We've researched other towns to see what kind of problems they've had, if any. We've had the police talk to those other towns to see what kind of issues they've had, if any. We've also been contacting existing businesses to see what their interest level is, who's interested, who's not. And we were going to culminate this all by conducting town halls or a special meeting where residents could provide their input once we have all the facts. But it makes no sense to come to you with no facts, because you would be reacting to something that was emotional and not fact-based. So that's what the trustees and I have been committed to. I think we're all still committed to it. I think that process will be open and transparent. I would entertain a motion if someone wants to call for a special meeting. I would entertain that motion now, or we can set it up at a later date.
Mr. Mayor, I
Trustee Guerra.
actually contacted the Civic Center today and found an open date on a Monday night, if that's something the board would like to discuss.
Okay. So before we do that, we have to vote on the motion to table, and I will vote no on the motion to table, and I'll tell you why I will vote no. Because the motion itself doesn't make any sense. It's not a motion that we would actually ever pass because that ordinance is already on the books. So that's why I would vote no. If there's any other comments, if not, we'll call the roll on the motion to table. So there's a motion put to table the main motion that was read. Call the roll.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
No.
Excuse me. I just have a question.
Sure.
This is for our attorney. So just to go along with what you just said, is the motion that we just tabled, Is it a legal motion, Mr. Fricker, or is it an illegal motion, or is it ill-worded, or?
No, it's a perfectly legal motion
Okay.
that was tabled. So now
Is
the
it
matter is
contradictory
tabled
of what we
until.
already have, though?
Beg your
Is it
pardon?
contradictory to what we have?
It's exactly what we already have.
It's what the board already has, but this motion is, the main motion was to have the matter submitted to referendum
Right,
to prohibit it.
right.
That is not diametrically opposed to what's already existing on the books.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, my point was, it's just the same as what's on the books.
Special ad hoc committee?
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Fenton.
No, that was trustee Callen.
Or was it trustee?
So,
Wow, you got a high voice.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
More bass in his voice.
Yeah.
Trustee Calandrello.
I hate to do this after that, but I do have a point of order regarding this motion, regarding this appointments. I'd like Attorney Fricker to answer the question. I do not think there's any vacancies on this committee, this motion, based on reading the minutes. While we all 7-0 passed to review the ad hoc committees. However, there was no vacancy set up, and in the motion right after that, the second, within 35 seconds probably, a next motion set up the structure, which included no vacancies. So I don't think this is a proper or appropriate motion this time. I'll ask Mr. Fricker to answer that question.
Is there a motion pending and what?
It's a point of order.
Okay. I haven't heard anybody make the appointment yet or suggest that there be appointments made. After I received the agenda, I took a look at the minutes of the meetings past, which go back to August 21st, when this ad hoc committee was created. As you may recall, there was some discussion and some debate over the creation of the ad hoc committee and the appointment of members to that committee. In my review of the minutes, as well as listening to the tape of that portion of the meeting, the ad hoc committee was created by motion of this board, approved motion of this board. However, subsequent to that, at that same meeting, there was a town hall meeting or a workshop pursuant to Trustee Calandrello's motion that was to create the structure of that committee. So to my view, in terms of reviewing the minutes and listening to the tape, although the committee has been created, there was no structure to the committee. There was no designation of the number of members to the committee. We don't know if there was going to be one member of the committee or 20. There was no indication as to how long the terms of any members would be, what the duration, specific duration of the committee would be. So in my opinion, there is no vacancy on the committee because no membership was ever created. The committee is created, the workshop has been held to, as I understand it, to create a report back to this board in terms of the structure of that committee. I don't know if that report has ever been received, but at this point, there are no vacancies on the committee because there are no memberships created in the committee, so.
So Attorney Fricker, my question is, it did in fact say that the ad hoc committee had 6 months in which to operate, I believe. So there was a time frame for that. And there have been, you are absolutely correct, there have been no committee members appointed whatsoever. So that is creating vacancies to a committee that just doesn't, we've created a committee, but we have no members.
We have no members and in the creation of the committee, there was no indication of how many members there would be. So there are no memberships available, in my opinion. It's just a committee that's been created. A structure was to be put in place based on the workshop that was held, I think, a couple of weeks ago on a Saturday. But there is no membership created. There's no number of committee members, so there can't be any vacancies, in my opinion.
Trustee Dodge.
I just kind of want to make sure I can wrap my head around all the subtleties here. This is a committee to review committees, right? And we've been playing patty cakes with this for how many months now? So as I look at this motion, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not too terribly worried about whether or not we have vacancies. The essential idea here is the word "and," right? We all have a set of opinions about exactly how to restructure the entirety of all of our committees. I see no downside for having meetings like what Trustee Calandrello advocated and executed. I also see no downside towards going forward with the committee to actually take on some of this work. So, to be quite honest with you, there's nobody on this list that I object to. I don't object to the process that Trustee Calandrello is pursuing playing out, and I don't have any problem with everybody talking about this. We're all trying to get better for the Village of Orland Park. So I guess my plea to the board is, can we quit screwing around with this and get on with it?
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
As you and I spoke last week about this particular item, I will just repeat in public what I stated, which was I would like this board to give Trustee Calandrello the professional courtesy and opportunity to finish what he started. The week prior to the November 20th meeting, we'll all be receiving a report from the special meeting that we had in October, and we'll have information then from that committee and from other surveys from individuals who weren't able to make it to the meeting but responded. And then on the 20th of November, Trustee Calandrello, correct me if I'm wrong, plans to hold a discussion about this particular item. So I think it would just be out of professional courtesy to let him finish what he started, and then after that point, if the board still feels a special committee needs to be formed, I would think that would be a good idea. However, I think it should be members that are not members of any commission currently, possibly just fresh, non-biased individuals in the public who don't serve on a committee. So that would be my objection to moving along with this tonight.
Any other comments? Trustee Guerra?
Yeah, I would agree with Trustee Fenton. There was a process put in place, and Mr. Mayor, you communicated looking for the ad hoc committee, and that was my response. I think we ought to finish the process that we have before we change lanes. And if this doesn't give us the result we look to, we're only looking for weeks, then I think we could certainly go another direction.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Ruzick.
So I obviously have no problem, as I haven't from day one, in proceeding with this ad hoc committee as the mayor proposed. However, I think allowing another couple of weeks, we've talked about this for months now, so to wait another 2 weeks to see what happens is not a bad idea. And I have a question for the attorney. So if I were to make this motion tonight, as it's drafted, you're saying it would be void? The committee or whatever action the board voted on, if it was in the positive?
Yes, to answer your question, in my opinion, yes, until this board says by motion, whether it be by resolution or by motion, that there shall be, for example, 7 members of the committee, 9 members of the committee, 3 members of the committee, until the membership has been created on this committee, and probably in addition to that, who has the authority to make the appointments and how are those appointments ratified and confirmed. All of the standing committees by ordinance in the village code designate the mayor as the one who makes the appointments, and then it's subject to ratification or advice and consent of the village board. In this case, there's been no structure to that, the creation of that committee in terms of membership and how the appointments are to be made. So it's up to this board to designate how those issues are addressed.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Calandrello.
I want to thank everyone for the support, and we had a discussion 2-3 months ago about the process, and we all agreed on it, or the majority of the board agrees on the process. So I do apologize to the people who came here for this issue, because we talked about this, and I did not put this on the agenda. This was another person who put it on the agenda, so I apologize for wasting people's time who came here for this. And if you look on the list, again, I repeat what I said back in August. I have no objection to the people on the committee. The people that are on the committee, actually, I think all of them, I personally supported for whatever new committees they are on. So I apologize for wasting 20 minutes on this, but we decided on the process. Let's keep the process going. And it actually would be a timely process and a faster process than proposed originally. And also, a lot of the members on the board, the majority that supported this, had some issues with, from transparency to board involvement to a lot of different discussion. And I just wanted to get more people involved, and I think we had 2 or 3 members of the community that was not on the committee, on any advisory boards that were there on the workshop. So the process is working, and I look forward to finishing it up. So thank you very much.
Any other comments? So this was first proposed on July 5th. It was discussed at 4 separate board meetings. That's absolutely true. And what we heard repeatedly is it was not about the people, it was about the process. The board actually passed the ad hoc committee exactly as it was originally drafted. Exactly. Review our existing commissions, goals, structures, charter, and current level of engagement and impact. Identify commissions that are no longer needed and make recommendations on new commissions and advisory boards to fill needed gaps. Make recommendations on commission structure, meeting requirements, goals, and charters to help make them more value added to the village board and staff. Make recommendations on how to make commissions more efficient and effective, and ensure that our commission structure continues to meet state requirements. That was exactly how it was originally written. The only thing they did not pass were the people. At that time, Trustee Calandrello did offer another motion to conduct a process within 2 months. 2 months was when the workshop was held. It's been over 2 months at this point. The workshop, it was not a waste of time, and we did learn a few things. But there were 4 board members out of 7 of us that were present, 19 committee members or commission members out of 111, which is less than 20%, and 5 residents out of 58,000. There was almost an equal number of staffs and their time spent with this. So while we learned a few things, we did not learn what we needed to. And most importantly, several boards had 0 members present or 1 person present. So half of our boards had either 1 or 0 members present. So it's hard to get input in a process like that. And all I've been looking for from day one is to get input on these boards to make them better for the village. Well, this process that Trustee Calandrello started is a good start. It will not get us to the end game. And my proposition is to appoint people to this ad hoc committee that has been created to work with that report and actually make these committees more useful going forward. So I would entertain a motion to create 7 committee members, or if you prefer, you can make it 11 committee members, where each of the 4 who've been opposed to this since day one can give me a name, which I'll be happy to put on the committee. So I would entertain a motion for either 7 or 11.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Dodge.
why don't we just do a quick consensus? I don't have a strong opinion on 7 or 11, so maybe we can just run up and down and see what everybody thinks. Let's just have a little bit of a voice discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Guerra.
if I may, first of all, one thing I'd like to clarify. The people that you're proposing for this committee, 4 to 5 of them have already been approved for other commissions. This is not a personality issue at all. For me, it's a process issue. Trustee Calandrello expects to have a report ready by the 20th. That's our next meeting. I don't know what could be accomplished in the interim. I think we should give him the professional courtesy and let him finish.
Any other comments or questions?
Regarding your specific point, I mean, it's probably easier to get the right amount of work done if we had an 11-member commission, so I'll suggest that as an idea. So whether we're not going to vote on it tonight would be my guess, but I don't have a problem with creating an 11-member committee to review the committees, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. All of this is about a committee to review committees, so let's go with 11 people.
The one thing 11 people will do is, since we passed it with a 6-month time window, we've already lost 2.5 months. So 11 people would allow us to get to work a little sooner.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Ruzek.
I would be fine with the 11 people. 11 people would be fine with me.
I will entertain a motion.
It's probably Mr. Fricker, probably the best thing would be a motion to direct staff to start drafting this.
Well, I think what the mayor is, if I understand what the mayor is suggesting is that he's entertaining a motion to
Create an
designate
11-member committee.
A membership of 11, in this.
The committee's already
case,
been-
11 members to the committee.
All right, well then, move to form a committee with 11 members, or create 11 members.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I object to the consideration of this question. I ask that a vote be called on my objection.
And what's the basis of your objection?
Basically, my objection is I don't think that what we're doing now is what was contained in the agenda. There's nothing on the agenda that says we're going to create the structure for an ad hoc committee. The agenda item says you're going to appoint members to the committee. You've already heard from counsel that he feels that that would be legally void because the previous ordinance did not specify the criteria for appointment, number of people, term, et cetera, and I agree with him. And I think to try and do that now, not having had it on the agenda, is inappropriate.
According to our attorney, that was exactly what we were supposed to ask for, was a motion to create the new membership, so your objection is overruled.
No, objection goes to a vote.
No.
No, it's overruled by the chair.
Appeal the rule of the chair.
To who? No, it's your decision. You're the presiding officer.
I'm the presiding officer. To whom do you appeal it?
The Robert's Rules of Order says an objection to consideration of the question should go to a vote. So that's my objection.
I'm not aware of any vote in objection.
I'm not either. So your objection is overruled, and there's been a motion put, and call the roll.
Question?
Trustee Guerra?
With this motion on the floor, we already have Trustee Calandrello's committee in place. What's the effect of this on Trustee Calandrello's process?
His process will complete with the workshop and the presentation to us, and then the committee will work with that information. And in fact, the people that I was going to include on that were Trustee Ruzick and Trustee Calandrello, because this process seems to be important to him relative to other trustees. And so he was also part of that 7-person committee, and now 11.
Doesn't it seem like we're invalidating his results before we get them?
I don't think we're invalidating them. We're recognizing the fact that it's not going to get all of the objectives created by this committee are not going to be reached from talking to such a small number of people.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello?
I just want to point out that the process isn't over. We laid out a process that we're going to have the report coming to the board on the 20th. After that, there's going to be publication of the results, and then we're going to have more public input. So the characterizations that painting that it's over is incorrect. Second of all, to correct the record, I have the minutes here if you'd like to see it. It doesn't say everything's done in 2 months. It says the workshop would be an open and transparent conversation regarding the citizen committee structure, and the workshop would be held within 2 months of the passage of this motion. It doesn't say it's done in 2 months. And again, I apologize to everyone for being here, for wasting their time. This vote happened 2 months ago.
And it doesn't lay out any process. It also does not, you do not have the authority to appoint a committee. So call the roll.
Trustee Dodge.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Dodge.
I'm happy to vote for the motion I made for an 11-member committee to review the committees. I wouldn't mind if we all just had a motion to table everything and let's wait for a bit. So I moved to, can I table
You
my
can make a
motion?
motion to
Or
table.
withdraw my
Second.
motion?
I second Trustee Dodge's motion to table.
Any comments on the motion to table? Call the roll.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Nay.
Economic Development Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to confirm the appointment of Jack Craven to the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Is he here?
No.
Is that here? Okay.
He's not.
I don't think so.
Consent agenda?
We doing these?
Missed one.
This one?
No, we're skipping.
They're not here.
Skipping it? Oh.
Not here. Consent agenda. Item A, October 20th payroll approval. Item B, accounts payable from October 17th through November 6th, 2017. Item C, 2018 Taste of Orland Entertainment, American English, a Beatles tribute band. Item D, retaining wall repair at 144th Street and First Avenue. Item E, roof replacement for Heritage and Helen Park Pavilions. Item F, sidewalk salt order for village buildings. Item G, University of Chicago Medical Center, ground lease maintenance cost agreement. Item H, Hay and Associates contract for plan review and landscape architect services. Item I, Bluff Point subdivision authorizing development agreement ordinance. Item J, PDQ Restaurant Lot 3 of 15610 LaGrange Retail Development, special use permit approval. Item K, solar panel installation at 15613 Plumtree Drive, Shaw Solar Panels, installation of 6.6 kilowatt solar array as part of an environmental clean technology review.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrello.
I move to approve the consent agenda A through K.
Second.
Is there anybody like anything removed from the consent agenda? I'd like to remove item G from the consent agenda.
Dan, you want to read it again?
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Can you read it again, please?
Sure, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda A through K with the exception of G.
Jim?
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll? Mayor Pico?
Aye.
University of Chicago Medical Center ground lease maintenance cost agreement?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
move to approve a budget adjustment for fiscal year 2017 in an amount of $21,709.75, and I move to approve a cost-sharing maintenance agreement as outlined estimated to be $86,839 annually, and I move to approve authorizing the village manager to execute necessary documents.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Carrie, could you please explain this item?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. In the original agreement that we had with the University of Chicago, there was a paragraph in it that required a cost sharing of the maintenance of the parking deck, the surface parking lot, as well as the common areas, including Jefferson Street, landscaping, and associated costs. At that time, we weren't sure exactly how much those costs would be, nor were we sure whether we were going to take the lead on that or University of Chicago would take the lead on those things. But we are contractually obligated to enter into this agreement with them. So we've been working with University of Chicago staff for the last few months to come up with what the total cost of the project would be. They have a premium level of service that they hold their all their properties to. We're not going to be participating in that premium level of service, so we're going to be participating in the normal level of service that we would anticipate providing for snow removal, grass cutting, maintenance of the deck as it relates to removal of garbage and things like that. But we are going to participate in all those costs. We are going to let them take the lead on that because they have their premium services that they provide, and then we're going to reimburse them as opposed to us taking the lead on it and then them reimbursing us. The costs that we have included in the board report tonight is actually lower than what we originally anticipated they would be, and this money is budgeted in the 2018 budget. But since we're getting into the snow season, the winter season, we needed to get this agreement to move forward now to cover the remaining months of 2017.
And University of Chicago determines who the contractor is?
Yeah, they do most of this in-house, yes.
And how do we review that to make sure that?
They have to submit monthly bills to us, and we have to review all those before we pay it.
And how do we determine, the contractor that they've chosen, or is that their ability to choose whomever they want?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton? Aye. Trustee Dodge?
Aye.
Trustee Guerra?
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Alternative fuel pilot program?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Carroll.
I move to continue indefinitely this item.
Second.
Mr. Chairman?
Call the roll.
Just a quick discussion so I explain why I'm doing this. There was a contract that had been approved for the board to approve the village manager to enter into a contract. It's still not done yet. AFS, the vendor, still has some items that they're working on with us, and with a couple of the other items we have Public Works working on, they didn't quite finish it, so I'm asking them to continue it while we go through that process.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Dodge?
Just to build on that comment, I want to thank Trustee Mike Carroll, for bringing this up, because I think it's kind of brought up some pretty interesting ideas about what we want to do broadly with alternative fuels and our fleet purchasing policy going forward. So just glad we got this discussion started. So we'll see how this goes with this particular item.
Any other comments or questions? So I too would like to thank Trustee Carroll for getting this started. I think one of the things that Trustee Dodge and I have been, we've taken some meetings on the compressed natural gas front with some companies around here that both provide that service but also use that service to get information. And things have changed from when the original alternative fuel pilot program started. So I think that's part of what our ongoing discussion is as well, to make sure that when we do this, or if we do this, that we move forward in the most, that we do this right and we do this across our entire fleet. And you have a fleet-wide perspective and a fleet-wide program, so that we have the best thing moving forward that's in the best interest of the village, whether that be propane, whether that be CNG, but to look at it across the entire fleet. Any other comments or questions? Call the roll.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge. Aye. Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Amend Title 7, Chapter 4, number of Class B liquor license.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
could I get an ordinance number?
5234.
I move to pass ordinance number 5234 entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Title 7, Chapter 4 of the Orland Park Municipal Code regarding the available number of Class C liquor licenses issued by the Village of Orland Park, Cook and Will Counties, Illinois."
Second.
Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrello.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Mayor Pico's golf outing for veterans.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Ruzick.
I move to approve the Mayor Picow's golf outing for veterans amended budget.
I'll second. Probably have some discussion.
Yeah, and I'll maybe try and cut off some of this discussion, but I'll just give you the reason for this. As everyone in the budget meeting knows, I said that the mayor's golf outing would not be part of the budget. Well, as it turns out, the Veterans Commission running the golf outing, it needs to run through the budget regardless, because the Veterans Commission reports to the. So it's kind of a technicality. If you look at the golf outing budget, the revenues far exceed the expenses, with what's the difference going to the net proceeds for the Veterans Group. So so the Veterans Commission will still be running it, if not Parks and Rec, and we won't be spending money directly out of anything but the budget for the golf tournament. So the golf tournament will cover it. So it was more of a technical issue than it's not going back into the budget. And the numbers that you see here, where it has the $25,000 at the bottom, are the $25,000 that are projected to go to the veterans groups: PAWS, Orland VFW, Orland American Legion, Veteran Garage, and Veteran Voices. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. So my question was, the organizations that the money is going to, it's not going to our Veterans Commission. It's going to these veterans organizations.
So the Veterans Commission, whenever they have fundraisers or make money, they take that money and they give it to various organizations
Okay.
that are vetted by our Veterans Commission, as well as Tom Dubleby, who's an assistant to
Got it.
the officials that handles veterans issues.
Thank you.
Trustee Guerra.
A question to piggyback on what Trustee Ruzick just said. If our veterans, though, have needs locally right here, are they required to make these contributions? I'm thinking they may want to invest in their building, some facilities that are there, rather than do all of these donations.
So the Veterans Commission decides it's not necessarily going to be these five. It doesn't have to be these five. That's what's in the budget, what's budgeted currently, because as Director Mampey told me, there has to be, whatever's going out has to be in there.
But
so
they
that we
wouldn't
can
be required.
No, they're not required to give it to them, and they will decide at that time. And largely, it's going to depend on which of the veterans groups step up to help. And in many cases, as I know from being a member of a couple of them, the veterans groups actually raise money to give to other veterans groups, our VFW, our Legion, so they don't keep a lot of that themselves. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
I hate ruining the kumbaya moment we've had so far tonight, but I have to make a couple more comments about this. First of all, you yourself, Mr. Mayor, made comments at least a half a dozen times I heard about accusations that the village was funding PR events or political events for the mayor. And in fact, you made reference to the mayor's golf outing, the mayor's coffees, et cetera. Secondly, at Silver Lake Golf Course this year at the mayor's golf outing, which had been for open lands, you had made a promise to the attendees that there would be no village money spent on this golf outing. And I get that it's the Veterans Commission that is going to be running the golf outing. But as you have mentioned, the Veterans Commission is funded by the village. I say all this with, kind of the concern and the utmost respect I have for the Veterans Commission. In fact, you and I attended the Veterans Commission Steak Fry yesterday. I think Tom Dubelby's still back there. The recording secretary did a phenomenal job. There were approximately 90 attendees. It was a great event, and they do great work. And I'm 100% behind them having a golf outing that would raise money. But based on the things that you have said, I would feel a lot more comfortable if either there was an alternative funding source, since you promised no village money would go towards this golf outing, or if it truly is the Veterans Commission golf outing, change the name and not have it be the Mayor's Cup, and I would be fully okay with funding it. But I can't get past that kind of catch-22 I'm in because of the past promises and statements that were made.
Well, first off, as I explained, and maybe I wasn't clear, I thought I was, that the Veterans Commission is formed by the village. Therefore, anything that goes in and out of the Veterans Commission has to go on to the village budget. Even if it was a 501(c) like open lands where everything stayed inside of that, it's still on the village budget, which was a technicality that we learned after we went through the budget process. So all of the revenues you see here are generated from the golf outing itself, not from the village. The village is not putting any money in there. And all of the expenses you see are the expenses that are projected for the golf tournament. So essentially, it's a pass-through, and for auditing purposes, because we're a government entity, it has to be on our budget. Secondly, I find it really interesting that you have concerns over the outing's name. I remember it being called Dugan Days when I was a kid. Then I believe it was the Owens Open. Then it was the Open Lands Golf Outing, but then it became the Mayor's Cup, and now the Mayor's Golf Outing. I've never heard any concern about the name in the past. I didn't hear any outrage from you when the senior health fair went from the Mayor's Senior Health Fair to Clerk Mahalik Senior Health Fair, and there were giveaways all over the place with Clerk Mahalik's name paid for at village expense. In fact, the Public Works Department, which you chaired, mysteriously, my signature disappeared on information letters and was replaced with yours.
Yep.
So I find the hypocrisy quite interesting. I happen to agree with you about using public office to plaster names all over things. The difference is, between you and I, is I believe it applies to everyone, whereas you seem to believe it only applies to me. So for this reason, the Veterans Commission, and you can ask Mr. Dubley if you like, has already been asked to change the name of the outing, not include my name, and to my knowledge, that's yet to be decided. Also, when I first took office, I directed Mr. Lamargo to make sure the road construction signs did not have my name on them. The previous mayor had these pamphlets all throughout the village hall, said compliments of Mayor Dan McLaughlin, paid for by citizens for Dan McLaughlin, which is a campaign item in the village hall. I had them change it to this, Village of Orland Park phone numbers, and that's it. I've also changed the state of the village by having it hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. I've moved it to late April, after the election cycle, so that it can't be used as a campaign event. All of this being done is saving the village tens of thousands of dollars as well. So my principles hold fast. whether, and it doesn't matter whether it's a matter of preference or convenience. They hold fast to me no matter what. So they should apply regardless of who holds the office, even to oneself, which is why the Veterans Golf Outing will not have my name on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Fenton.
I really don't like all this bickering, but you did make a claim, and I need to get an answer, so if the clerk can't speak, if somebody in the audience can speak. You made a claim that, and I was not at the senior thing, I wasn't able to go, that Clerk Mahalik had stuff that had his name on it, and you said the village paid for it?
Yes, it didn't say paid for by Friends of Clerk Mahalik, and if it did, it was a village event, and it shouldn't have.
Right, but are you
The
positive?
point.
No, wait a minute, I'm still talking. The point is, this bickering's got to stop. This is insane, and you and I spoke about this. But if an accusation is going to be made that someone used village money to promote their name at an event, that's pretty serious. So I guess I'm looking for an answer of, was village money used for whatever was out there with just his name on it? So I don't know.
Director Mampy? Okay.
Would the deputy clerk know? I mean, can that?
Sure.
There was no public funds. Clerk Mahalik generously donated bags so the seniors could bring home.
Casey, would you step to the mic, please?
No problem. Deputy Clerk Griffin, just want to let you know, Clerk Mahalik paid for the bags that had his name on it, so the seniors wouldn't have to take home the gifts they were given by the vendors. The only thing that was paid for by the clerk, his personal funds, was the bags. Donated was donuts from Bun Cake, donated all of the donuts for the seniors, and Jewel donated the pumpkins that were decorating the tables. So no public funds were spent for the health fair.
Thank you for clearing that up.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the motion.
Any other comments or questions? So there's a motion before to approve the budget for the golf outing. Call the roll.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Fenton.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Trustee Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Strategic plan.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Dodge.
before, I think I can see the energy kind of going out of some of the crowd here, given what we're doing up here. I wouldn't mind if everybody here, and I appreciate the forbearance of the board, everybody here probably came up for the gaming question, right? We have a lot of work to do. And so we got to get back to the agenda, but I just would like to encourage, and if the board agrees, send us a lot of you know us, call us, send us the emails, tell us what you think. It's a work in progress. I think if I understood the process right, when we get this thing drafted, we'll find a way to kind of share it with the public, but since you came up here, let us know what you think. Might want to have to do that electronically because this might go on for a little bit longer tonight. Just giving you a heads up.
And I guess to echo that, for those of you who want to talk about gaming, we will have the open comment period. I would suggest we're going to host a town hall or a special meeting, so you'll be able to speak then as well when that's the topic for discussion. But either way you want to do it is fine by us. So with that, the strategic plan and process discussion, there's not a motion here. I put this on the agenda because I think doing a strategic plan is pretty important. Our comprehensive plan in 2013 was pretty well done from what I can see, with the exception of I didn't see a whole lot of metrics and measurement tools to hold people accountable. So that was maybe a step that was missing. The 2016 strategic plan looked relatively high level. So I thought it was important to introduce the potential for having a strategic planning process to give direction to our staff to set the goals for the village. So there's a few things, and so I'll speak first, I guess, in this case, give you my thoughts on this because I've been the one that's given it some thought, and then get your input. But one, it's pretty important Following the 6 Ps, prior proper planning prevents poor performance. There's a 7th, but I can't mention that one. Planning's critical to good management, as well as good government. And planning really, you need to focus on 3 years or more, and it needs to be a serious effort. It's going to take some time and energy from the board. And I believe it's a board exercise. We're the ones that set strategy for the village, and then staff should be in support of that. A planning process that I believe at least is a good starting point is the first thing we as a board need to do is get together, have a planning session, and define or review the village's values, our vision, and our mission. Then it would be up to staff to help us find a fact base, so develop an external fact base, an internal fact base. Some people call that a SWOT analysis. It's maybe a little bit more detailed than that. And then part of that process is that the board would be involved in is to identify the key issues and questions that we would need to address as part of the continued planning. Then once that was done, we need to set goals for each of the departments to meet the values that we set. And we need to work with the directors, and that's the board working with the directors, to develop strategies to reach the goals we set. And then also work with them to develop an action plan, and that action plan should include some key performance indicators, some metrics, and some work plans. And obviously, we'd finalize that with some kind of a written strategic plan. And then lastly, we need to monitor and modify that as we go over the 3 to 5 year period. So that's kind of a starting point for the discussion, and open to listening to other comments and get your thoughts.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton.
Just a question to the village manager. I know we spent many Saturdays down at the police station doing exactly what Mayor Pekow just mentioned, and that was back in 2015. Is it possible that Mayor Pekow could get a copy of that plan and how we are constantly updating the goals and the strategic outlook that we had for the village from that workshop?
Yes.
Do you want to explain what we have, that we already did all those workshops and what we came up with?
About every
We need a microphone system.
Mr. Lamarvo, I can help you out here. I'm aware of what we have. I just think it's time to do it again.
Yes, agreed. Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Guerra.
I think, that's fine. I just would suggest, as Trustee Fenton referenced those meetings, perhaps in the initial phase, we might want to include some of the stakeholders in town and invite them to participate as well.
I'm sure it would be an open meeting, and I'm sure we would do that. It would have to be an open meeting.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Carroll.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said. We did do that process, as Trustee Fenton mentioned, at the police department in their multipurpose room. We brought in members of the public, several members from our commissions and advisory boards, and that's really where we came up with the pillar of the high-performing organization, and we've spent so much time in our committee meetings and board meetings since then talking about that. And I, for one, think it's been, quite a great benefit to the village, for the board, to see what high-performing organizations are, and we've identified a lot of non-value-added processes. I'm learning the language and the lingo, but I agree. It's about time we look at it again. I think we should look at it every couple of years, and I think the process is very valuable.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Dodge.
I think everybody in this board is going to be shocked that I'm going to keep talking about process improvement and technology investment. But one of the things that I want to make sure we get into this discussion, and I think everybody in this room senses it as well, right? Context matters when you're setting strategy. I tell that to my clients all the time because it's kind of what I do for a living. And we're not going to escape the fact anytime soon that we're in Cook County. We belong to the great state of Illinois and all of its challenges. And so we have a unique setting here where we have to recognize that we are a regional retail center. And, in round numbers, what we spend to deliver services is roughly $2,600 a house. What we collect on average in property tax is about $600 per house. Those are averages. And so that's funded by retail and other businesses in this town. So as we go forward, I want to make sure that we take, I'll use the strategy term, the balanced scorecard approach, that what we can do as a municipality, recognizing the trajectory of our economic development given that context and that reality. And have everybody here heard of Amazon? Right? Has anybody here ordered from Amazon? Come on, put them up, right? And so, as you guys know, our sales tax are down, let's just call it about $1 million. So it is inexorable. We were going to have to deal with shrinking retail sales, especially given the way they're taxed. And so as we go down this pathway, I'm going to kind of stay on this one, that looking at other restaurants, other types of sports or tournaments or entertainment types of uses is how you support and balance a retail center, and making sure that we're thoughtful about we do everything we can as a municipality while we try and compress costs and get better, but recognize what may be inevitable and slow declines in our retail sales tax, because that has huge implications on what we do as a community. So it's a non-trivial risk, again, to use another strategy term, that we've got to face, and I want to make sure we get into this mix here.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Calandrella.
never hurts to update our strategic plan, so I support your effort and support your process, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay, well, we're on that kumbaya moment. I guess we'll move on to the next one.
Ready?
Yep.
Franchise agreement with Comcast?
So this is, again, something that I put on there, and Mr. Lamargo can give us the background on this.
So basically, back in 2003, the franchise agreement between Comcast and the Village expired. By federal law, they still have to pay their franchise fees to the Village. Back in about 2010, when we started the LaGrange Road work, Comcast, we had asked ComEd to underground their lines to make sure that LaGrange Road looked aesthetically beautiful. And as a result, we asked Comcast and AT&T to bury their lines as well. By law, we need to pay for the burying of utility lines, which would have been ComEd. As a result, Comcast wanted us to pay for their burial of those lines as well. We said no, because they are not a utility. When we were negotiating with a new franchise agreement, they had wanted to put in there and stated that they wanted to be treated as a utility. So any lines that we would bury, or any lines that we require undergrounding, we would pay for, including theirs. The Village stated as a compromise that if it was related to a transportation project, we would not agree to paying for their undergrounding. However, if it was just an aesthetic, just asking them to underground just for the sake of undergrounding, we would pay for it. Comcast did not agree with that, so therefore we're kind of at a stalemate with one paragraph or one section of the franchise agreement, which is 3.1 of that agreement.
3.3.
3.3, thank you. So that's where we're at right now.
And the reason that I asked him to look at this, and him and I talked about it, and the one thing that is not here is there was a master, or a, what do they call it, Joe?
A model
agreement that was
franchise agreement,
that
yes.
was actually worked on by Kleinthorpe and Jenkins, our attorneys,
Yes.
that
Was part of
included reimbursing them for this. And as I read it, I realize, and I totally understand Manager Lamargo's position that we don't have to reimburse them. But I also looked at it and said, well, wait a minute, they've put the cable up, and now we're asking them to move it and underground it, as even if it's part of a transportation project. And to me, it seems like a right versus wrong issue. They are paying significant franchise fees, and it does seem like something that, while we can say no, maybe it's not, that I don't believe it's the right thing to do to say no. If it was the first time they were putting it up, they would have to do it themselves. But since it's already up and we're asking them to move it, that was, and so I thought it was important that we have that discussion at a board level to determine, do we agree, or what do we think? Should we continue to operate the way we have without a franchise agreement, or should we move towards that model franchise agreement where we do reimburse them when we're asking them to actually move something that they've already put in? And I'd just like to get the board's thoughts.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Ruzick.
So, do you want to talk, Joe?
I'm sorry, just one more
Sure.
point too, that if we do pay for Comcast, we'd have to pay for everybody, including AT&T and any other non-utility group. So if we pay for one, we're gonna have to pay for all of them, which just for LaGrange Road, it was about $1.2 million it would have cost the Village to underground those just for the Comcast lines. ComEd, ComEd, right,
Well,
lines.
The ComEd lines, we did
About
reimburse.
right, was about
We did
1.2
reimburse
more.
ComEd. I think
We did.
Comcast was far less than that, and they're not asking for that in arrears. They're just asking going forward, I believe.
Right. But we would have to pay for our AT&T and any others, too.
Just, Mr. Chairman, so I'm clear, because I read the agreement, Joe sent it to me before, or actually, I think you did, Mr. Mayor, and I read it. So 3.3 seems to be the sticking point.
Yes.
Have we gone back to him recently and asked him to remove that? Is it worth trying again? Because my understanding is there's no downside to us operating without this franchise agreement. Is that correct, Ken?
That's
Legally?
correct.
That's, well, yes. I mean, the franchise, under both state and federal law, they must pay the village for the use of the right-of-way. So the village receives a 5% franchise tax, which is roughly $800,000 a year, which means that their revenue from the Village of Orland Park, Comcast revenue, is in the area of between $16 and $20 million a year. But they do have to pay that 5% fee, franchise fee, if they want to continue to use the village right-of-way, whether or not we have a franchise agreement in place.
Okay. So I guess my opinion is I don't see any upside. It's going to cost us money, and we don't have as much as we had before to go around. So that would be my opinion.
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Guerra?
Mr. Chairman, I recall when this came up years ago, and Comcast was adamant as we were planning LaGrange Road improvements, they wanted to be considered a utility because NICOR and ComEd are the two utilities that the state of Illinois recognizes, and most communities, if not all, recognize, so that when they were putting their service underground, we had to pay for it. That's how it is. That's a universal, they provide service to every home, business, office in town. Comcast doesn't necessarily do that. AT&T doesn't necessarily do that. So I don't know, they lobbied very seriously back then to be given the labeling of a utility, and we didn't do it. And I think it would be detrimental to us to willingly say, sure, we'll go back and give you $1 million. In AT&T, and going forward, we have road construction projects on 143rd Street coming, 159th Street in place, 151st, Ravinia. I understand reimbursing them if, say, we were relocating a cable between Village Hall and the Civic Center. It's on our property, we have discretion in that. We have no idea how they lay out their systems, that's their, that's their business. I don't think we want to hurt ourselves in the village in our budget by voluntarily saying, sure, we'll do this. We can just continue with the existing contract.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Calangelo.
I just want to echo Trustee Guerra and Christie and Kale's comments. 1.2 million, or whatever the number is, we'd rather use that on neighborhood roads than to give multi-billionaire companies. I'm not going to say it's a bailout, but I'd rather use that on our own property, and there's no harm of not giving this out. So I don't know why we want to give out free money. So thank you.
Trustee Dodge.
Mixed feelings. We caused them to have a change. And so I've got kind of mixed feelings about them having to bear costs without any kind of, compensation, I guess is the right word. On the other hand, I think, with Trustee Guerra, the points, well made, which is if they're not recognized by the state of Illinois as a utility, well then, okay, and we're kind of swimming against the tide. So I appreciate the sentiment about kind of right versus wrong. It's a lot of money, right? So there's other things coming. So, I don't know if I'm comfortable going all the way to Bright to say we're going to treat them exactly like a utility, because if the state doesn't, and then we start writing checks, we're looking pretty generous. If we're causing them to have a change in costs and there's other ways for us to work with them, I'm not opposed to something else. Just because it's, and I'm mindful of the fact that every time we do a road project, and we got to cross a pipeline, or we have to cross a utility, they just absolutely, I don't think there's a better phrase in economics other than stick it to you pricing. Mm-hmm. So we've been absolutely given big bills by some of the folks who are on the other side of this power equation, virtue of state law. So to bring that to a crisp point, I don't know if I want to treat them like a utility and give all this money away, but I don't mind if we find some way to accommodate when they do incur these costs. That's where I'm at.
Any other comments? So my final comment on this is there was a model agreement which did include those reimbursements, and that was, and some other nearby municipalities have adopted that model agreement. And I totally understand this would be a cost to us. I totally understand that argument. But like Trustee Dodge, I'm a bit uncomfortable because just because we can do something doesn't make it right and doesn't mean we should. So like Trustee Dodge, I'm willing to find a way. I don't want them to stick it to us and feel they have carte blanche, but if there's some way to work out something where we're asking them to move their investment, that it doesn't, to me, it just doesn't seem that it's the right thing to do, even though it's something that we can do.
Mr. Mayor, just as a point of clarification, I apologize, I didn't mention this before. One of the reasons why they needed to move is because we have ComEd moving, and they share the poles with ComEd. If Comcast wanted to erect their own poles up, they would be able to do that, but it would be much more expensive for them to do that than to underground.
Understood. Okay. Well, in any case, I came across this, it was brought to my attention, I thought it deserved a board discussion because we haven't had an agreement since 2005, I believe, so we're 12 years operating without an agreement. So it looks like at the present time, the board feels like the status quo is appropriate. Is that correct?
Well, if we want, I mean, I guess, you know, Joe, do we have an option to sit down with Comcast and talk this through, or you're not going to get full carte blanche like a utility? Maybe there's some other accommodation.
We every year we sit down with them. It's ironic because I feel like every year at this, for the last 2.5 years that I've been dealing with this, or 3 years I've been dealing with this, it always seems to be the October, November time frame that they come out and out to us. But we will absolutely reach out to them again and see if we can sit down and work out some sort of agreement with them.
I mean, you know, and it's, you know, let's get back to central principles here, right? Which is, you know, if you drive certain roads in Orland, you don't see a lot of wooden poles with a lot of wires hanging off it. There's a reason we've been investing in this over the years. And so, you know, there's a community good here, but, you know, financial context, I just said earlier, context matters. Well, guess what? Revenue's not quite as good as it used to be, so let's not write a check to ComEd tomorrow.
Right.
But if we keep looking for cooperation, right, or Comcast, excuse me, thanks, Pat. If we start looking at these things, well then, okay, there maybe is some other way to solve this problem. Don't treat them as a utility, but then totally let's not, you know, go the other way either. So I would be comfortable if Joe kept exploring it. I don't know if the rest of the board thinks that.
I think maybe we add to that conversation and say, before you raise your rates, hike those rates on our residents, we'll be happy to sit down and talk about everything.
Right. I will note that we do have a very good relationship with Comcast, regardless of not having the franchise agreement. We have a very good working relationship with them. But we'll continue the conversation. Sure.
Next one, village manager's report.
Bully farm stand rental agreement?
Trustee Fenton.
Move to approve the Boley Farm stand rental agreement with Henry Hank J. Jacobs for 2 terms.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a comment. For all the people that might not be familiar with the Boley Farm, it's the farm that's located on 151st, just east of 82nd Avenue. And the 2 terms, at the end of the 2 terms, our rental from that farm stand will be $31,350, because I know some of the board members in the past have asked what some of our open lands purchases cost us. So this is a rental agreement that we have with this farmer, and it's a very unique thing to have a farm stand in a farm in the middle of a community. And I know the residents really appreciate it, and I also know the Jacobs family do too. So any of our heat costs out there or electric costs are covered by this rental agreement.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Fenn.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Thought it was Trustee Kim.
I'm sorry. Trustee Calandrella.
Aye.
Trustee Dodge.
Aye.
Trustee Guerra.
Aye.
Trustee Ruzick.
Aye.
Trustee Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. So Note that Clerk Mahalik is stepping down, and Deputy Clerk is filling his spot. So we have non-scheduled visitors. Again, if you want to pass on talking about the video gaming, feel free, because we are going to host either a town hall or a special meeting, or maybe even more than one, depending on how that goes. But I will call you up anyways, and if you so desire to speak today, you certainly can. Tim McCarthy?
Thank you, Mayor. Good night. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have prepared some information.
Is that on? Can everybody hear him?
Can you hear me?
You got it.
Okay. How about if I speak louder? Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Tim McCarthy,
Tim,
and
Tim,
thank you for
Tim,
giving me this.
just take the microphone.
Which
No,
one do you
just-
want?
just
Hold the microphone
Take
and
the
you-
microphone.
Here. There you go.
It's like I'm on stage here. How's
Yeah, it's
that?
like, come on, Norman Rockwell, public meeting. Let's go, Tim.
Okay, well, my name is Tim McCarthy. I'm here with my wife. We're owners of Patty B's Pub in Orland Park, 143rd and Wilcook Road. I have prepared a pretty detailed statement for the board. I'm going to draw that statement and cut my remarks down to nothing. I thank the mayor.
Okay, see you later.
I thank the mayor for your comments earlier about our concern regarding the ordinance being brought before this board this evening. We were taken by surprise. I personally have been involved regarding video gaming with this administration and the prior administration for the last 4 years. Our goal, along with my fellow restaurant and bar owners, was to devise a program for Orland Park which would be acceptable by the village board and by the business owners. We worked on this very, very hard, and we finally come to some kind of consensus on where we're going. And it is very restricted, and we're happy to agree to those restrictions. By withdrawing my first comments, I now only ask that we be advised if, in fact, a unilateral decision to present something like this is put forth before the board without us being even called. It's rather offensive of all the work that not only we put together, but the work that you all put together in coming with this consensus. So I would ask the board that we be ensured that we are contacted for the next meeting. My second point, I would hope that we could move on this matter in a timely fashion. We are being bombarded as small business owners in this state, not the state, in this county, that is just crazy. We just got through with the sugar tax. And I don't know how most people in this room feel about the sugar tax, but it was a tax that was just levied against us within a month's time and increased our costs by 48% for those products. Thank God it's been removed, but rest assured the county of Cook will come back at us within the next couple months with some other tax. We already pay 5% tax for every TV we have in our stores. So I would ask that we move on this matter and schedule one town meeting. Now, if we're going to bring people in support as opposed to who don't support it, I suggest we have it in a bigger room, because there are a lot of people who haven't called you because we've told our people, don't be involved. This is not going to be a circus. We have done this for 4 years. Mayor McLaughlin before you. Most of the trustees are involved. So please, please, let's move on it. It's a very expensive proposition for us, and it's going to help our business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. And I think we're committed as a board to hosting either a special meeting or a town hall, however we decide to do that. And we're planning on doing it at the Civic Center which apparently right now is open on the 27th, which is a Monday. So we will coordinate that first and then make that announcement, but we'll, instead of waiting till 48 hours prior, we'll try and announce that as soon as we set that up. I think that would be fair to everybody involved. Additionally, interestingly, regarding the sugar tax, I actually had a conversation with Circle K this week, and they indicated that their 3 stores in Orland Park dropped 55% of their business since the sugar tax was put in place. So that was definitely a real impact to small businesses. So next up is Daryl Danis.
Hello, Board of Trustees. Thanks for having me. Fellow citizens, residents of Orland Park. I don't own a business anywhere in Illinois. I don't own any businesses. I have 2 small daughters and a wife. We live off 143rd between Wolf and Will Cook. And we moved to Orland Park because it's verdant, it's beautiful. You've got great areas for my kids to play. You've got good restaurants. And one of the things that we thought was great also was that there were a lot of new, somebody mentioned mom and pop shops, not cookie cutter places moving into the area. I did some research last night. I tried to figure out, is this a good thing, is this a bad thing? And I haven't seen anything that was necessarily bad. I see that there's some revenue for businesses. The only thing that I can come up with, and I may be trying too hard to come up with bad things here, is that when you give a business another way to make money that they don't have to work too hard to get, they stop getting, they stop coming up with new ways to make their business better, better foods, better ways to, mix drinks. Who knows? So I think of some of the businesses that are taking it to the next level, and I don't want them to, stop trying because they have this easy way of making money. So that's the only thing that I can come up with, and I hope that the town hall sheds more light on what the right decision is for our village. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jim Harmoning.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees, and people here. I'm against video gambling. I just think it changes the character of our community. I'm opposed to it also because a family member of mine almost lost their house gambling. If you look at Oak Lawn and Crestwood, they're everywhere. They're in gas stations. They're in just gambling parlors. They gave liquor licenses to a place just so they could have the gambling. I don't think we need gambling everywhere. Unfortunately, it's a tax. The state of Illinois almost brought in $1 billion last year through people losing money on gambling. I think that money could be better spent, me going out to Patty B's, me going to these other restaurants. We go to the restaurants here. A few weeks ago, I went to a restaurant that had 4 gambling machines, and they were noisy. It was like Vegas. I was eating my dinner and getting a stomach ache because of the bobbles and bangs and zaps going on. So I hope you put it on the ballot and let the citizens, this is one of the most important things you're going to do in your terms. To not let the citizens have an advisory referendum on it, I think is crazy. So I applaud the clerk for bringing it up. If he's been talking about it for 4 years with this board and last boards, this is the first I'm hearing about it. So thanks, Clerk Mahalik, for bringing it to our attention. So we want to eliminate video gambling in Orland. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Pete Collins.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, first of all, you may want to go back to item 4 of the agenda, the third item on the proclamations for the contest winner. You skipped over that.
The contest winner wasn't here to reach.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going by what I have here. So I have a very simple question. It is around the video gaming, but a very simple question is, whose idea was it? And I ask whose idea was it because it's been dormant for 8 years. The budget meetings notes stated that there was no new items of revenue brought up for the last 7 years. So who thought that this would be the thing to be brought up now? I asked that, and I'm going to defer to comments from Trustee Dodge a couple weeks ago. Sorry if I butcher this, but I mean, you made a comment when you were talking about the increased responsibility of the village manager, and the analogy was it's going to be hands around your neck, or something of that nature.
Yeah, it's a phrase from information technology, one throat to choke.
Okay. So, sorry to bring that back up, Joe. So, I think it would be interesting to find out whose idea this was, because if it's great, you should get the credit. If it goes through, it should. But if it doesn't, you should be taking responsibility for being the one that said, I want to do this. I hope that...
Well, you're asking a question, I'll tell you. I was called... hang on, let me answer. A number of the residents a number of the business owners in town called me, and I think they called other members of the board. So that's where it got started, was with the business owners. So I just want to answer your question while you're...
I know, I have 3 minutes, so...
No, I didn't want to cut them off.
So I will answer. So what I think what Trustee Dodge said is correct, and it went through. I believe it went from there to our attorneys, and our attorneys came back with a draft ordinance for all of us to review. That's when I first saw it, and I knew that this issue was simmering around because we've heard a lot of residents. And one of my first comments was, we need to make sure we include the public, and we need to make sure we include the clergy. As far as it coming to the board today, as we said, that was nobody here because we haven't finished doing the research that we needed to do to bring you a fully informed, for us to make a decision, we need to be fully informed. I believe for you to have an opinion as well, for many of you, you need to be fully informed because you don't know everything that's being considered or looked at yet. And until that time, it's hard to I'm certainly not going to say where I'm going to vote because I don't know where the ordinance is going to shake out. And I know there's trustees here that are still considering it in both directions.
Okay. I would hope that you follow up, each one of you, follow up on what you said about you wanting to have the voices of the community heard, especially on something like this. I would expect that the dates, and the date that was proposed is the Monday after Thanksgiving, by the way. But the date when this is going to be proposed as a town hall be on the website, available, front and center, so that those of us who come to the meetings, those of us who look at the website will have that information. There was talk a lot about the restrictions, lots of restrictions on this. I hope those would be outlined, so that we can see what those are instead of just saying a bunch of restrictions, because what you may think is a lot of restrictions may not be the same as what others may think is a lot of restrictions. So I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to making sure that we're informed of when those meetings are, the town hall meetings, and when that occurs, and with proper notice, okay? Not the Friday before if it's on a Monday. Give us some time to be able to adjust our schedules for those of us who want to be there.
Thank you for your comments, and I think to reiterate what was already said is that we're... Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, I was just going to say, as the mayor pointed out, it even goes further back than what the mayor's talking about. Finance Committee had addressed gaming about a year, Carol, year and a half ago. It came up through the finance department as a possible revenue stream, and we sent it back for Chief McCarthy to look at area towns. So it's been kicked, this is not something that came up quickly. This item on the agenda tonight did, but we've been reviewing this for well over a year and a half. Because I think the finance committee looked at it about a year and a half ago.
We're not in a position yet to have public comment because all of the research, at least since I've been here, all the research hasn't been done. And we did host a meeting with the clergy because we thought they would be an important stakeholder. And then, as I stated earlier, I think just about 10 minutes ago, November 27th is we're planning on having the meeting, and then as soon as we firm that up, we will get that on the website. So even though we're required to only give a 48-hour notice, it will be much longer than that. If I have my druthers, we'll know in a day or two, and it will go on as soon as we know. So I can't do much better than that for you. Okay, John Mahalik. And John, I just want you to know and be aware of this, that so that you walk into this knowing your position, that you are not covered like we are from from legal issues as an elected official. So just so that you're aware.
I appreciate your concern, Mayor.
Okay.
I just want to clarify some things that came up tonight. This was talked about in finance, as Carol mentioned, Trustee Ruzick mentioned, a year and a half ago, whenever it was. When was that?
About a year and a half.
Something, whenever that was. The reason I've been talking to residents for over a year about this subject. I'm very passionate. I don't want video gambling in Orland Park. I'm not going to hide that fact. As I talk to residents, I'm not going to rehash everything. Most people have seen my letter. As I talked to residents, I saw that most residents shared a lot of the same feelings. Some didn't. Some thought it was a potential revenue stream, and we can debate that. But most were very adamant that they didn't want it in Orland Park. So when I saw an ordinance come across the clerk's office, come through a clerk's office, that's when I ramped up my outreach to people. And as I discovered that I can place an agenda item on, the people that are working on a referendum, it's already being worked on, by the way, through a petition process, the people that are working on that don't have the luxury of time to wait till a hearing or whatever. They have to get signatures to put it on the ballot. So those efforts are going on right now. I put this agenda item on today to keep those people from having to do that, if the board so choose. And by the way, I think it's completely appropriate to table it. I think taking 2 weeks to talk about it makes perfect sense. I don't dispute that at all. It was given to everybody last Friday, 2 days for these fine people to talk about it or think about it. Probably isn't enough time. So go ahead and take the 2 weeks. That was always my intention. I absolutely think it's appropriate to table this and discuss it further. But the reason that it's perceived as being rushed is, again, those people that are working on it right now, if it was going to be placed on the agenda, just to save them that work of going through that petition process. My views are already public. They're out there. Everybody knows them. I'm not going to rehash those. I just wanted to clarify why this perception of being rushed, why it came about this way. And just to clarify something else, I absolutely paid for everything we gave away that had my name on it at the clerk's coffee. Wouldn't consider anything else. Thank you.
Any other comments on the gaming?
Yeah.
Jim?
So I guess, folks, it kind of comes down to your theory of government, which is you have a number of small businesses who are hurting, and, if you so fundamentally hate the idea of somebody finding a machine behind a wall, under a video camera, over the age of 21 within full sight of a licensed liquor holder who has to see the gaming machines, if you're that objected to them spending $2 per bet, don't patronize the business. It's really that simple, right? Because when we talk about these restrictions, you know, I'm loath. Anybody who's been watching this board for a while know I fought the valiant fight when the non-smoking thing came up. I was absolutely saying, let the business owner decide. Put a sign in the window. If you hate smoking and you hate the fact that somebody enjoying what we would call a habit is interfering with your right to breathe clean air, don't go there. That business owner is going to get it pretty damn quick. And so this ought to be essentially you spending or not spending your time or your dollars with the business you do or don't like. And so let's talk about the restrictions that a lot of other towns don't have that we're proposing. A video camera over the top of these machines. Tone down volume so you don't hear the flashy dingy bangy. I can't begin to tell you how much I hate going to Vegas, but I have to go there occasionally for work. I don't like that town. I'm not giving anybody any of my money on gaming. This is not what you see in other towns, right? And so the wall, hide it behind something, insight, we're trying to work out all those details. So as we've said, we bring back to you a thoughtful way to let you know exactly what you need to make a choice, as opposed to, once again, the overarching hand of local government tying what you do or do not do with your morality, and a business owner. If you hate it, don't go. And when challenged, let's be really clear about this. Let's get a little bit religious on this one. When we had the conversation with the clergy, there's a representative from the prayer center, and if I'm quoting him correctly, and I apologize to him if I'm not, he said, I'd like to ask my Christian brethren if gambling is a sin. And he said, I think, and I'm quoting correctly, in the Quran, it is explicitly forbidden as a sin. Well, guess what? Not a single member of the clergy there could find a passage in what we would recognize as either the four canonical Gospels or the Pauline letters or what comes after them expressly forbidding gambling under Christianity. Do with it what you will. Ultimately, this comes down to you choose. If you don't like it, don't go.
And any other comments or questions on the gaming issue?
Chairman.
Trustee Carroll.
Just briefly, I have to point out somewhat the irony of our agenda that we approved a raffle license for St. Michael's School tonight, my parish, since 1976. And it's not the only gaming that's allowed at St. Michael. There's a Super Bowl party. There's an annual $100 ticket raffle. There's Catholic churches that have bingo throughout the area. We approved another raffle for a baseball organization. Gaming exists, whether we like it or not, in the Village of Orland Park. We sell lottery tickets in the Village of Orland Park. Gaming exists. I always jokingly, he left so I can pick on him. Tim McCarthy, his bar, you could hit a 9-iron from his front door in Landon, Homer Glen, where gaming is allowed, and he's trying to compete.
Jim couldn't. He can't hit a 9-iron.
Maybe a driver for Jim. Mr. Pappas's bar, you could drive right down the street into Palos Heights, or not Palos Heights, but there are bars right down the street. We heard about Nick's Barbecue at 127th in Harlem. Been there for 20 plus years in the city of Palos Heights. Just announced they're moving down the street into Alsip because they can't have gaming. It's happening. I've talked to 4 or 5 bar owners in Orland Park that would be leaving the village within the next year if gaming is not allowed because they cannot compete with their neighbors to the south, west, east, north. They can't do it. So that the gaming is here. Orland Park residents are driving to our neighboring municipalities to place those wagers. But the bigger part to me, and Mayor and I spoke about this earlier tonight, I'm not a gambler. I'm not putting $1 of my money in those machines. But it's also the issue of the bar and restaurant owners that can't compete for pricing on their hamburgers and on their bottles of beer and other food items because of what their neighbors all around us are doing. And then one other quick comment, because Mr. Harmony made a comment about no public comment. That's not true. This village was the first village to get a 100% transparency rating on how we put out our agenda, our minutes, and all other items relating to government business. Every one of our committee meetings is open to the public. Every one of our board meetings is open to the public. All the action we take is put up by our agenda items in advance and voted in an open meeting. So to say that something is without public comment is only because the stark reality is very few people come to our board meetings unless their neighbor calls them and tells them, hey, gaming's up this time, or this is up the other time, and there are the few hot button issues that when people hear about it, we get a full boardroom. But the stark reality is 99.9% of our board meetings, you see staff and these two gentlemen from the press, and that's about it. And then they'll go, whoa, we didn't know about this. Well, as one of my favorite talk show hosts says, democracy is not a spectator sport. We would love it if we had a full room at every one of our board meetings, because then we would have people commenting about the things we're considering. We would have input from the public. We do everything in our power and then some, getting 100% transparency rating to try and tell everybody what we're working on, when we're working on it, and it's all done in an open forum. So please come on out, so I don't have to hear another meeting where, well, we didn't know this was going on, because we do our best. If there's any other way you can think of for us to tell you what we're working on in advance, I'm all ears. But we've done everything, and we've gotten a 100% rating so far for doing that. So come on out, come to our meetings. We'd love to have you here. We'd love to have your input, so that we don't have to have one of these where people are upset because they didn't know what was going on. Because while this is the first time this was specifically talked about with gaming, the issue of gaming as a potential revenue stream has been talked about at this village board level for well over a year, maybe even a year and a half. The other part of representative democracy is when you elect the 7 of us to make these decisions, it's our job to go out into the community and ask people questions. Clerk Mahalik says he's talked to, most of the people he's talked to are against gaming. Most of the people I've talked to are for gaming. So it's a matter of the 7 of us that have to make this decision, going out into the community and kind of bending people's ears and finding out what they want. And so we do that on a regular basis before we come back and vote. I don't vote what's going to help me, because like I told you, I'm not going to spend $1 on those machines. But I do want to help our businesses. I do want to improve our budget with the slumping retail sales. So those are things I think about. But again, please, please, please come on out to our meetings. We'd love to have you here so you can hear what we're working on.
Any other comments? So we do have one more speaker, but because he's not talking about gaming, I wanted to close out the gaming thing. Mr. Harmoning talked about some things, so we had a few comments about a few different things. And I'm going to throw these out here because these have been in discussion. They're not finalized, but they're things that we're considering. And so for those of you who are passionate about this issue, now you know well before the 27th, the things that we're considering, and you can think about it for the next few weeks before coming out to speak about it. Regarding the transparency, we are looking at ways to get it videoed, and right now we do put everything on audio tape the next day, so word for word. Unfortunately, it's not video, which is good because you don't have to look at some of our faces, which is okay. But we are working on trying to get a video option through the high schools where they would come here and it wouldn't have a big cost to us. There's some opposition here for a variety of reasons. A lot of these things we are addressing. Okay, so they're everywhere. I heard gas stations. We're limiting them. I think it's already been agreed that we're going to limit to Class A licenses, which are only restaurants. So you're not going to see them in convenience stores or gas stations or any of that kind of thing. I think one of the things we've talked about is not having any signage outside. So we've certainly talked about that, aside from the sign that Trustee Dodge wants. So if you want to show that again.
You want the artwork press?
One of the things that came out of our discussion with the clergy was the noise and the attraction to kids. So we talked about, is there a way for us to limit or eliminate the noise, and we're investigating that. There was a talk about competition that was brought up. One of the things, that's one of the reasons why I'm considering it, is because all around us, we've actually had a couple of bars and restaurants that have moved, that have went into another town instead of Orland Park, small mom and pop kind of restaurants, because we don't have it, and everyone around us has it. I will say exactly what I said to the clergy. If I was in the state of Illinois when this all came down, I would have voted against gaming, because I don't think it's a revenue. The revenues offset the problems created at the state level. So I would have absolutely voted against it. But now it's here, and we're surrounded by it. And the other thing I told, and the clergy mentioned a lot about the worries of addiction. I don't think having gaming in a few restaurants here is going to affect the addiction problem someone has when they can drive 10 feet out of Orland and feed that addiction. If we were an island like we were in 2009, I think we made the right decision to not put it here. But now we're surrounded by it. And I've heard, well, it'll cheapen our town. I don't want to look like Orland Hills. I don't think anyone here does. We don't want to look like Oak Lawn. But does anyone here think that Mokina's not a quiet little town? Or that Homer Glen's not a quiet little town? Because they do have it. So there are ways to do this, and we're looking at things that are potentially even more restrictive. So we are looking at this very closely. Regarding, and I know this was mentioned before, but regarding the clerk's announcement and the ordinance going through the clerk's office, it came through the clerk's office actually because of a mistake, and it was actually sent to the deputy clerk. Otherwise, the clerk would have never known about this and would not have been able to put this on the agenda because we weren't ready. We don't have all the information yet, and it was always part of our plan, which is why we spoke to the clergy. I mean, I think there were how many, Jim? About 15 clergy members there? So we spoke to them to get their input. It was always our intention to have town halls. Well, they're clergy, so I expected them all to be against it, and they were, but they were not, they weren't beating our door down, I guess. And if you want to have the discussion about gambling being a sin or not, I think one of them actually pointed out that he had to pay off a Super Bowl bet. One of the clergy mentioned that. So, I mean, there's a lot of and they all admitted there's a lot of shades of gray. So I think pretty much all but two of them admitted that there are a lot of shades of gray regarding that. Again, for me, this has nothing to do with the financial impact whatsoever. This has to do with the business competition. And if I were to vote for it, it's going to be because there's enough restrictions that make it palatable. Otherwise, I wouldn't. So we will have that meeting. It'll be either a special meeting or a town hall, whichever we decide. And I guess Trustee Ruzick has something to add.
I have one comment, quick comment. In terms of when this was first brought up publicly, we voted on July 3rd to approve an impact study, which studied the effects of video gaming from a financial standpoint, as well as a potential food and beverage tax. And we just got that study finalized on Friday. So that's why it's not come up again. But in terms of when this first became public, my understanding is that's the first time that we, as a board, discussed that in the last...
Since I've been here.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so with that said, Mr. Mackinnon, can you come up and talk about your issues?
I think they're going to probably be pretty tame. They're different topics. I guess this is all right. I've got two topics, and I have two topics, and I appreciate your time. First one has to do with the discussion of theaters. I guess there's some talk about adding a theater or theaters at the mall. Sears apparently is going to be rebuilt, or somebody wants to rebuild Sears and add some theaters. Another option is 143rd and LaGrange Road, which personally I don't think is a very good idea to have anything like that at 143rd Street. 143rd and LaGrange is already a traffic nightmare. I don't think that's going to really help the situation. I think another aspect of this, I know, Mr. Mayor, you have said it's not up to the village to pick winners and losers, and I would agree with that in any kind of business. And if there's some private developer, private business who wants to invest however much money he wants to invest and bring more theaters to the village, God bless them. However, I hope that there's not one penny, $1 of village money going to any of these guys, whether it's in tax breaks or outright grants or anything like that. I don't want to spend any more money on theaters or apartment complexes or anything like that. So one other thing, as far as the mall is concerned, I know Trustee Ruzick, we talked before once or twice about case studies, and I'm just curious if anybody has studied Charlestown Mall in St. Charles. It used to be a thriving mall. It's pretty much a shell of its former self. In fact, the village, the trustees are talking about raising it. They're talking about demolition, wrecking the entire thing, and putting in condos and other kind of residential units. So that's something I think we all need to be concerned about. The mall, Sears is on life support. Macy's is going to close. Maybe not, in the next year or two. Macy's is on its way out. The other big stores are also suffering. So perhaps a theater is a good idea, or there's some other reuse, some other new use that could be, the mall could be repurposed. But perhaps that Charlestown Mall would be, a good learning experience. Just the other topic I just wanted to mention just briefly has to do with videotaping these meetings. I don't get it. I've looked at Oak Lawn's meetings that they videotape. Tinley Park does the same thing. I know a lot of other places do. And I don't know, they get a few views. They get maybe 100 views. How many of those are unique? I don't know. Maybe it's one guy looking at it 100 times. It could be. I know I looked at the same one several times, so I added to the problem myself. So, and the quality is not the greatest. You don't know who's speaking. Unless the camera's focused on a certain individual, you don't know who's talking. The audio quality is very poor. The video quality is not that great either. So I hope we're not going to invest a lot of money in that, and maybe it's a good idea for the record in some kind of archive if you need to go back and really see that. But on the other hand, why not get a court reporter and have a regular transcript or something rather than something like videotaping and having audio recordings of the meetings. So I, for one, don't think it's a good idea. We'll see what happens. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. So regarding the video recordings, we're trying to find a solution that doesn't cost us any money in having the high school do it as part of their video club, which would be community service. And I think Joe Lamargo wants to say something. Probably tell me that's going to cost us a little bit of money.
Oh, for the love of God.
And maybe they can teach us how to work the microphones.
We have been in touch with Sandberg, where Director Florentine is working with them to see if we can't get a meeting with them to explore that option.
And I know that Superintendent Gay thought it was a great idea because it gets them community service hours. It also gets those students to see how local government runs, which is also good, and then also gets everything we do videotape.
Mayor Pecan?
Trustee Dodd.
Might we ask the crowd if we did have videotapes, would y'all run home and watch this again? Anybody? Just checking. Just checking.
We know you would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll pass out stomach medicine.
Any other comments?
Yeah, let's make it a long night. So on the comments with the theaters, this is another one of those questions that come up before boards like ours, which is if the private sector wants to put another theater in Orland because they want to change the viewing experience and this, that, and everything else, and they want to make private sector investments, sure, why would we stop that? Because as we said earlier, you can't yet outsource to Amazon going to a theater with your family, okay? So that has value. Where it goes and how that works and how, if we put it at 143rd, there's implications. If we put it at the mall, there's implications, and I think we're trying to work that through. I, for one, would want to make sure that you solve some of the potential security issues if it goes up near the mall, right? Because these theaters tend to stay open late. Of course, they're attractive to teenagers, so we're just going to have to be smart about that, and that's one of the things that I think our police department's working on. So, it's kind of day-in-the-life question, which is how do you balance out your economy and think it through?
Any other comments? So I'll jump on the theater thing really quick, I guess, since I've been involved in it heavily. As you're all aware, there's been two that have been mentioned, one through a public press release, other through our own village press. At the end of the day, my position is stayed pretty consistent, which is as long as there's no incentive money going towards anything, then I'm going to approve them. If they come through and they meet all of our other issues with only minor changes, I'm going to approve those positions. We all have opinions on which one would be better. There are good arguments for both, and they're not unreasoned arguments, whichever side you happen to fall on. The reality is, it's a free market, and why would we ever turn away an investment that the marketplace thinks is a good one for something like that, whether it's at the mall or downtown? So that's my position on it. We'll see where those things come as they petition and go through the process, which they certainly, neither one of them are all the way through. So with that, we can start with board comments. Trustee Gira?
Okay, I guess my first comment would be regarding a theater. My concerns, there's different proposals out there, but my concerns about Orland Square Theater, I think many of us here live through a theater there. So we know what the history is, and it has, there's many things to be researched and looked at, so time will tell. Other than that, my only comment, I guess, would be this has to stop. We have to figure this out. I think the ad hoc thing tonight versus the trustee Calandrella thing, it's a 2-week difference. Why couldn't we wait 2 weeks, Mr. Mayor? It's unfortunate. We have to figure this out so we can move on. As you said, we have many things in common that we work together on. We just need to figure it out and do a better job, all of us. That's all.
Trustee Carroll.
Thank you. First of all, I want to comment, I want to thank everyone who came here tonight, regardless of which side on whatever issue you were here to talk about. It sounds like it was primarily gaming. You fall. The fact that some of us have been working on this, myself, for a number of years, it may have kind of a preconception as to where we are sitting right now, doesn't mean that we don't want to hear everyone's opinion. And so, again, I've been surveying residents. I was here in this boardroom, not as a board member, sitting in the audience 8 years ago when the board voted to not allow gaming. And I've been following this topic very closely ever since. I've spoken to literally hundreds of residents and business owners over that 8-year period. So yes, I do have maybe a little deeper opinion on the issue because I've been forming it for so long. But I do think all of you to take the time out of your busy days to come here to show us whatever side you happen to fall on. It's crucial to this process, so I thank you for that. I do want to, on a side note, if you weren't here for committee meetings, Waste Management typically comes here once a year to tell us what's going on with how much, recyclable tonnage we bring in, and they talk about this current state of affairs. We had an interesting topic about recycling and plastic bags and plastic in general. The village manager and the public information office are going to be making that information available on the front page of our website very soon. I encourage you to take a look at that. We're going to be trying to come up with a way to make that message clearer to the residents and to have more of a partnership in trying to resolve these problems, because otherwise it looks like the cost of refuse down the road might start going up. So we have to be careful with that. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And again, thank you for coming out tonight.
Trustee Dodge.
Just as we said earlier, make sure you let us know what you think.
Trustee Fenton.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the people yesterday who were involved in the Veterans Steak Fry. It was a huge success for the veterans. I know they really enjoyed it. They did say that their numbers are going down, people who attend it, but maybe it was because it was a rainy day, Tom, so look at it that way. But it's a great event, and I know they appreciate it. Most of us did attend the event yesterday, and there again, we can't do enough for our veterans who've served in the service, and I hope everybody comes on Friday. I know Tom has a fantastic program planned for Friday to honor Veterans Day. And that's all I have to say.
Trustee Calandrella.
Just two quick things. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. Like I think Trustee Carroll and everyone said, it's great when we have a full room. It makes our job a lot easier because we have more opinions, and we all, except the mayor, has a full-time job, so sometimes we can't go door to door like we like to all the time. Second, I want to give a public pat on the back to the police department. They had their annual DEA drug collection. They collected 740 pounds of drugs, most of it's prescription drugs that grandma forgot or mom forgot to give back to the pharmacy after they were done. So it's a lot of powerful chemicals out there that was now destroyed. And for the complete, and so far in the program, we have destroyed and collected and destroyed 3 tons of medication, prescription medications. And I know luckily Orland Park hasn't been hit too hard regarding the heroin and other drug abuse problems, but that's a lot of lethal stuff out of people's hands. And if you have stuff at home, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5, you can go to the police station and just drop it off, no questions asked. So that's a great service that the Orland Park Police Department does, and that's a great job of getting 3 tons of drugs off the streets. So thanks.
Trustee Ruzick.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I want to encourage you to come again when we have our special meeting on the 27th, if that's the date we agreed to, and let you know that there will at least be 2 more hearings after that, probably. And I would just make a comment that while you heard several people voice opinions and I think favor of it tonight, I think you'll notice that the majority of the trustees did not voice their opinions yet. And I think that's because a lot of us are still taking time to, review some items, and we're requesting more data and have not made our decision on this yet. Thank you.
So I have a few comments. So regarding the gaming, I think Trustee Ruzick is right as far as not forming an opinion. I may be leaning a certain way, but I haven't seen all the facts yet. So I need all the facts, and I need to see the ordinance before I voice or make my vote. We also heard about theaters, and we've seen theaters at the mall. Well, I always point out that I was about 7 when those were built, and they weren't built next to the mall, so theaters have changed just a little bit since that time. And when we needed a new one in town, instead of investing in those existing theaters, Marcus Theater decided to build a new one 1.5 miles away. So that was their choice, and that was, again, the marketplace making those decisions. So I would never... if that comes to fruition at the mall, I certainly wouldn't turn down an investment in our mall before the mall actually has a vacant department store. I think anything proactive is a positive. It shows that people want to invest in Orland Park. They want to invest, and both of these companies want to invest in Orland Park, and I think that's a fantastic thing. It shows that they believe we are going to survive. They think our mall's going to survive. They think our downtown's going to survive. That's all good. At the end of the day, hey, these things get, we have debate, we have votes that aren't 7-0, they're 5-2, 4-3. I don't have a problem with that. That's the way it's supposed to work. And if sometimes they're heated, so be it. It's the way it goes. We don't always agree. I'm pretty sure most of us don't always agree with everyone in our house either. So I don't think that's a problem. At the end of the day, having that debate and then having those votes and hearing from the people and hearing from everyone on the board, that's important. The last things is I'd really like to thank the vets that showed up to the steak fry. As I pointed out there, even though I had a cushy Air Force life, we still looked forward to steak night whenever we were deployed. Also, I'd really like to thank the police department for their efforts this weekend. As there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes here, and just want all of you to know that when there are potential external threats, we are aware of them, we monitor them, and the police do a great job of making sure we're prepared and ready, and we were. So kudos to them. And then again, I'd like to reiterate Friday's Veterans Day. Mr. Dubleby has a great event lined up, and we're honoring the French as well in our mutual participation in Vietnam. So with that, I'll take a motion to go to executive session.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Fenton?
I'd also like to thank everybody for coming this evening. That was shame on me for not saying that. Make a motion to go into executive session for A, approval of minutes, B, purchase or lease of real property for the use of the village, C, setting a price for sale or lease of village property.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Aye.
Trustee Calandrella?
Aye.
Trustee Dodge? Aye. Trustee Guerra? Aye. Trustee Ruzick?
Aye.
Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. Snuck back up here.
JPEG, GIF.
Joe? Hey, whose was this? Oh, shit. On the beers. Turn on the air in here.